theorist, and the theory that was just published is worth conscious theory. I have a co-author that helped me write the book, Understanding Self-Worth. Her name is Chris Brown. I have a beautiful story about her. I don't know if this is the time for it, but you might remind me of that a little bit later. So we also have a website called understandingselfworth.com, and that is where you can find the book and other resources. We have a page for individuals who are not professionals, but the majority of the website is for mental health professionals.
Thank you. So, to lay the groundwork into understanding what we're going to be discussing today, worth conscious theory. What is
Yep.
that, and what are some of the practices or behaviors of it?
Mm. So I'm thinking the best way for me to start describing this, because it has multiple facets, is one of the ways I stumbled into thinking about it, which was, so I've been in private practice for a little over 20 years, and I actually started late into the industry. And a lot of my clients came in with the issue of self-consciousness. They didn't just have self-doubt, they had real entrenched self-consciousness, and it was problematic. And I started thinking, this was years ago, I started thinking, well, being conscious is good and having a self is good, but when we put those two words together, it's not a happy thing. To be self-conscious has a real negative connotation, and it's a negative experience, at least for the clients that I was working with. And so I started looking at what I had been trained in, what I knew how to help people do. And it was when they came in being self-conscious, which I put over here, I could get them to neutral, right? So they'd be self-conscious, it'd be self-conscious, and the other option was or not. And so I was like, self-conscious or not. That's kind of limiting. Not's better than self-conscious, but is there something over here? What's over here that's better than not? And I started formulating this idea of what could we be conscious of that's really good for us? What could we be conscious of all day long that would benefit us? And I was like, then I thought, well, our worth as a human being just, and then it hit me. I was like, why aren't we doing that? And I was like, there's no way. I'm not the first person that thought about there's no way. This is too big, too big of a thing. So I started looking, who's talked about worth, what have they said about it? And of course, I found wonderful stuff from Carl Rogers and even from Abraham Maslow. Some of the masters in psychotherapy had definitely touched on it. They cared about it. But I hadn't found anybody that had put the concept worth and conscious together as an option, as a way of being conscious of self that could counter self-consciousness, but also be a wellness practice. And so you talked about putting something into practice. Like if we were more aware of our self-worth on a daily basis, like I when I think of you and your story about loving to play music and pairing music with tasks that maybe were challenging or just undesirable, to me, that says that you knew something about your worth because you were worth making that work for you. You were worth putting something you love into that space instead of torturing yourself with the undesirable, right? So I just love when people find a way to honor their worth, especially in something that would be more difficult without that.
That's a fantastic point because it reminded me of when one day I was at work and someone shared that they're giving me news and they're giving me news that they felt was not the best. Right. And before they gave me that news, they're like, Train, I know you're always this happy, upbeat guy. I was like, well, thank you. And then they gave me the news. I was like, okay, thank you for the feedback. And the person was like, that it? I was like, yeah, you gave me feedback. You gave me constructive feedback. I took it. I accept it. Now I have to make a choice what I'm going to do. I can either reject it or continue forward. And the person's like, wow. You really are happy. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Be mad?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? But it's interesting that and I highlight that case because of the example that you and I were talking about when it came to music, dancing, and so on, is that my worth comes from within me.
yeah,
So the reason why it comes from within me is that when I get the feedback, I don't take it as an attack on my worth. I just take it
yeah.
as feedback, then I accept it, filter it out, and then I proceed accordingly. Is that a struggle for people to take feedback from other people and not have it negatively impact how they value themselves?
Yes. Yes, it's probably, I would say it's a majority of the clients I've worked with over the years. Now, the pump has to be primed, and it usually is primed in childhood, where we get exposed to messaging that in the book we talk about it as intrusive or abusive injunctions. And what those injunctions do is they condition us to believe that we aren't worthy of better treatment. And sometimes they condition people to believe that they aren't worthy of themselves, like being true to themselves. So you'll see there are different degrees of difficulty or challenge around self-worth. Um, it's not, do I have it or not? It's that, first of all, when people don't believe they have it, that's the worst case scenario that I see. When someone has been denied their self-worth to the level that they don't believe it exists, that those are the most miserable people that I've met, because they're either full of shame or they become apathetic to endure the belief that they have no worth. So that's a horrible reality, very traumatizing. And usually some kind of childhood trauma has contributed to that outcome. The other option is like these degrees of worth, and it's how we get conditioned in our family systems, in our community systems, can even happen in church systems. It can happen in the region. There can be regional systems um, where, for whatever reason, and this has been going on for thousands of years, but I don't like it. Somebody gets some power and they decide that they want to be superior. And so, to secure their superiority, they name who is less worthy. And usually, the people that are named as less worthy just don't have the power to counter that narrative. So they have to live with it. And it's just a horrendous misuse of power, in my opinion. I mean, for me, the basic thing is that you have birthright self-worth. We talk about it in the book that just because you exist, you are worthy to exist. Because you're a human, you have human worth. And then we see some people place more worth on their car than on the person that they almost hit with that car, you know, not on purpose, hopefully, but like, so I kind of traveled around there. Did I land in an answer that, okay? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that has been a reality for a number of different groups throughout history. And if I'm someone, and you mentioned feeling superiority, if I'm someone that my value comes from external things, I'm always going to have to look for, let me take that back because I don't want to speak in absolutes. I'm going to have to look for external things to continue to make me feel valuable. And if it was my car, after a while, I don't feel as valuable, so I have to move on to the next thing. One of the easiest things then would be to feel superior to people because there's always going to be someone else born that I'm feeling superior above, right? So if that's the case, then what connection can we say that self worth has to self respect?
so a big connection. I believe when we live from our worth as a person, um, we have to respect it. And so we talk about these four pillars of self-worth. Birthright self-worth is the foundation. Everybody gets it. And then we can build these pillars, these four pillars of self-worth. The first pillar is awareness, but it's awareness of that birthright. Some families make sure their kids know that even if society doesn't honor your worth, we do, right? And so in that family system, you can learn that awareness for your worth as as a birthright. The respect piece, the respect self pillar, respect self-worth as a birthright. What we say in the book is that self-respect always protects self-worth. And when you get good at that, you won't disrespect it in another person. But when you aren't living from your worth, which means you don't even know what to respect because you're not living from it. So you're not aware of it, you're not respecting it. Why would you know how to give that to somebody else? But what you might know, what you might get really good at in your family system is getting the counterfeit to worth, which is some kind of importance or status or achievement that the family sets up as a desirable goal. So I can't feel worthy, but I can get acceptance in my family system if I make everybody more important by succeeding in a certain way. And so importance becomes this counterfeit to feeling worthy. And just like you said earlier, you always need more. You always need more of importance. But when you're living from your worth and you embody it, you make it your own, it's solid. You just have to remember it. You just have to get back into it. You don't need to take anybody else's.
So like the person then who doesn't have a healthy level of self-respect, so they're going out there and they may commit crimes to please a group of people committing crimes. They may be promiscuous to get attention and importance from that gender group. Um, they may target other people in an effort to win approval by those that they think have a higher level of self-worth than themselves. Would that be an accurate picture to paint?
So it would be, I want to say that can happen. Of course, all of that can happen. And you're getting into some territory that's very interesting, where something that becomes quite pathological is when you don't live from your worth. And so you don't know the value of yourself and you don't know how to honor it. If you meet people out in the world that have worth, you can have worth envy. Now, I'm coining that little term right now, but I've also called it happiness envy and I've called it strength envy. And this is something we see in narcissism. There is a contempt for somebody having a quality that they've not been able to embody. And there's a sad story to this. There's some research out there that shows a narcissist was shamed so early on in their existence, and they're so afraid that that shameful narrative is more true than anything else. They're living to counter this horrible narrative. So their life is built on a set of false assumptions that makes their existence very fragile. And they don't want anybody to know that this inflated ego that they have could be popped, right? And so then you see them moving against whoever looks like they're happier, whoever looks like they're stronger, whoever seems to be more important in a system. They oftentimes will partner with someone who has strengths they don't have, but then they'll slowly work to erode or dismantle those strengths in that person, almost in a way to say, if I can't have these things, you can't. So it gets really dysfunctional That's a very serious level of denied self-worth in narcissism. It's not only denied, it's never affirmed. They just lose a connection to it as a possibility.
The emotional Trojan horse sneaking in.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. I would say I rarely have a narcissist come in and want therapy. It's happened a couple times, but it was more a partner pulling them in. I mostly see the partners that are just destroyed by the constant onslaught of don't be you, don't be you, don't be strong, don't be something I don't know how to be, and be in service of me and my fragile ego, which is an impossibility. Nobody makes it through that very long without damage.
And it's tough because trying to love someone to get better, trying to love someone to feel worthy, it goes back to that old saying, right? You can only fix you. You can't fix someone else. They're going to have to want it as well. And I'm glad that you highlighted that because it reminded me of a conversation I had with a young lady years ago, and she struggled with self-worth. All she wanted to hear was the words, I love you. She didn't hear it from her childhood. It was her love language, right? Words of affirmation, as they would say.
Okay.
Unfortunately for her, she started to go as in the world and she started to hear the words I love you from men. But these men were using her for her body. And
Mm.
it came to a point where she realized it. But then, like so many of us who are struggling with self worth, we come to that crossroads and we have to make a decision. Do I continue down one path, knowing there's unhealthy behaviors that I'm demonstrating, but I'm getting what I want? The words of I love you, words of affirmation. Or do I go down the path to the right where I won't be hearing those words anymore? It may be lonely, but I know eventually it will lead to a healthier version of myself. The clients you deal with, when they come to that crossroads where they have to make a decision either to continue the chaotic journey or to make or pivot or do something else, what are some of the challenges that they face to make that decision?
Well, first of all, it's never that clean of an option. I wish it was that clean. Usually it is, they are repeating a pattern it's almost like it's full muscle memory, mental, emotional muscle, if you will. And they're tired of repeating this dysfunctional pattern. They're tired of, in the case you're talking about, I would say it this way. If I can't get connected love, but I can get attention, I'm going to get as much attention as I can because it's a version of something. It's never as fulfilling as connected love, but at least it's not nothing, right? Which has been their options in their home, right? And so what I see in my clients, and I've had so many over the years, that they're so tired of repeating the pattern, and they come into therapy and they're like, I've read these books and I'm doing positive affirmations and I've, talked to my friends about it and I can't stop this pattern and I hate myself. I hate that I have this pattern. I hate that I can't stop this pattern. I don't want to live like this. And it's tears and frustration and multiple sessions of me hearing what the pattern is and what they've tried to stop the pattern that hasn't worked. And this can be, oh gosh, some people it's a decade of this, some people it's 3 decades of this by the time they come into therapy. Yeah. And so the first thing I do is normalize that they're doing what they know how to do based on the options they were given in their family of origin. One of the things we talk about in the book is kind of there's this double doubt that occurs in some family systems. And the first doubt is they get you to doubt your worth. Now, I don't like to believe any parent purposefully wants their kid to doubt their worth. I don't like to believe that. I think that's a level of cruelty that's horribly abusive. Now, I do think that occurs, but I think the majority of people, or at least in my practice, the majority that I've seen is the parents don't know how to help their kids feel worthy because they doubt their own worth. So they're giving what they know how to give. So the first doubt is doubting that you have worth. Then the second doubt is doubting that you can do anything about it, right? That the system won't even let you talk about it. Don't name the thing we're doing wrong. You'll make us look bad and you'll make us feel bad. Right. And so there's this kind of double thing going on with some of my clients that come in and they'll, when we get in this space, I'll see them get afraid because they're about to tell me the thing that in their family system you don't talk about. Like, I don't have permission. I'll feel that, right? And so what they'll start doing is telling me all the good things about their mom or telling me, all the sweet memories about dad because they don't want to dishonor these people that they love, but they need to tell the parts of the story where the people that they love didn't know how to love them. And that feels so ugly and so frightening. And it feels so humiliating. And so I will let them prop up the image of their parents to me because they need to. And then I'll say something really gently like, hey, I'm not gonna ever meet your parents. Did you know that? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, yeah. So, and by the way, this is a confidential process. So even if I bumped into one of your parents, first of all, I probably wouldn't know who they are. And second of all, nothing you say in here leaves this room, right? So nothing leaves this room, or everything you say in here stays in this room is another way to say that. And so then I see this little bit of wiggle room, this little bit of freedom that they shift into like, wait, I can say the thing. I can say the thing I'm not supposed to say. And I'll say, well, I'm going to give you permission in here. Like, this is my office, and, I'm providing a therapeutic process. And part of a therapeutic process is you have permission to say anything you need to say, any way you need to say it. So, yeah, yeah. What's the thing? I'm ready whenever you are. And it can still take 2 or 3 more sessions before they give themselves permission to share the thing they were never ever supposed to tell anyone. But when they do, some people feel immediately relieved because they realize that was a much bigger burden to keep it than to share it. Yeah.
It's easier to pin yourself against the closet door that wants to open than letting it open up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a type of closet. That's a great analogy, right? All families have stuff in the closet. All families do. But some families, what they have in there is, I don't know, like their great uncle went AWOL in whatever world war and they just don't want anybody to know, right? Versus stuff that's more active and in the present about we don't tell the whole truth about what's going on here in this system.
You mentioned earlier, you used the word hate, and then you mentioned friends and how we can get support. The weight of hate and not having supportive friends, how heavy is that?
I think it's the worst thing in the world. Like, that hate is just the worst thing. And it's a human invention. I would like to go back in time and find whoever invented this and talk them out of it. It has caused so much damage in the world, and it's pretty much only bad. On occasion, I'll have a client say, that they hate cilantro. Like they attach the term to something that really isn't going to be destroyed by being hated. Cilantro is going to go on being cilantro, right? Even if they attach that term to it. But anyone out there who has feeling and who can experience being the receiver of hate, it's not the same, right? And even someone like you, your solid self-worth that you have, I wouldn't have you brush hate off. I'd have you recognize who's sending that your way and then guard yourself against too much interaction with anybody, even online interaction or even receiving information from television or I say radio because of my generation, but we don't want to expose ourselves to people that want us to buy into how much they hate us and then feel the weight of their hate in a way that we aren't functioning in our own lives and our quality of life is diminished because we've let their hate sneak in.
That's a fantastic point, and that reminds me of a group of friends I used to have a couple of years ago, and they went from hating behaviors, like a lot of people have, right? Like I hate people that abuse the elderly, hate people that rob. Sorry, you hate that behavior, you hate thieves. Like you don't hate the person, you hate the behavior. They went from hating behaviors to hating people. And it was interesting from this perspective because I saw the transition. So it wasn't that I started hate, it wasn't I hate criminals, I hate murderers. It was I hate people. And I remember having a conversation with someone about this who was a friend back then, and I mentioned I was like, "Do you see the transformation where you're not speaking about the behaviors that you don't like, you're speaking about the people, and now you're saying that these people are taking away your worth." So, for example, and this probably happens in Canada, in the States, wherever, especially these days. I don't like this group of people because they're taking away something from me. And then I would ask the question, I was like, that thing that you think that they're taking away from you, did you even want it anyways? The answer was
Mm.
no. So it's not that you think they're taking away something from you that you value, it's just you want the option to decline it, right? And the reason why I bring that up, because I think a lot of times, since you mentioned the word hate and going through history, I wonder then, could it be that the origins of some of this is I wanted something that I thought would make me feel valuable. Someone else has it, so I hate that person. They didn't do
Mm.
anything to me, but I hate them because they have something that I don't have. Now
Mm.
I begin to identify a group of those people who have the same thing, and now I feel my value feels personally attacked. Do some people in general, or that you deal with, are so attached to external things that it impacts their perception of reality when it comes to their value and their worth?
Again, I am going to say, of course, that can happen. As you were talking, what was occurring to me, I was listening to your perspective on it. I was like, okay, where does hate really stem from? I'm gonna go out on a line here and see if you agree with this. Something I learned in school was that we don't want to feel fear or despair, and that those are primary emotions. We don't want to feel fear or despair. So, a secondary emotion is anger. And a lot of people will shift out of feeling afraid or feeling despair into anger because there's power in anger. And I'm thinking that hate is a real maladaptive version of anger. I think anger can be adaptive. I think anger can signal us when something's gone wrong, like being disrespected. Like it's okay to not like being disrespected. And if somebody disrespects us multiple times, it's okay to feel anger about it. Like I'm angry that this person can't stop doing this disrespectful thing because I'm not going to move against them. So do they keep moving against me, right? Especially if we've made an attempt at a repair. But then when we look at hate, which is just, I get a visual of a twisted, upside down, inside out version of anger that has spikes on it. And when we cultivate it within us and it bumps into our heart and our mind, it's just in us bumping into these vital parts of ourselves that it it triggers our worst reactions and it can grow. And I see this. Again, I in my one of my rules in my office is my clients say anything they need to say any way they need to say it. That's just be you. I'm just here listening, observing, learning, and I'm hoping that I have a technique or a concept to share that will help shift things, right? But the one thing I have people guard against is cultivating hate. Um, Even if it's quote righteous hate, some people will bring that in, like, well, I hate good things, things that people should hate. And I'm like, well, it's still not good to cultivate hate in our hearts. It's better that we say, I absolutely disagree with inhumanity. And that's a big one, right? Being inhumane. And so I absolutely disagree with it. I don't care to engage in it myself. I do not want to see people engaging in it. I will let them know I disagree with that. So we're adamant, we feel strongly, but we don't allow ourselves to hate anything in the definition of hatefulness. Okay, anger is different. It can anger us, but when we allow anger to decay into hate, I'm changing analogies now. It can take over. It can start running our show for us, just like an addiction can. Ironically, I've wondered if hate is an addictive substance.
I've wondered that as well, especially from the fear perspective. I fear that I can't provide the type of lifestyle that is going to allow me to raise a family. But I
Yeah,
see Dawna who's able to do that. So now
yeah,
I'm angry, which
yeah.
is, it came out of that fear. Now,
Okay.
because I'm angry, I have a choice. Either I'm angry and I'm going to change things in my life. That's the positive spin. Or I'm going to be angry and I'm going to hate Dawna.
Mhm.
The right, and that's where I think the crossroads are for a lot of people. It's okay to be angry. From my perspective, is what are you doing with that strong emotion? Because there's something else at play. But once it devolves into hate, that's a long way to come back from, because now it's probably impacting your body, your mind, all different ways. What are your thoughts?
I'm following you, and it's good logic. I'm thinking about we have quadrants that we talk about in worth conscious theory, and one of the first quadrant, there are four. The first quadrant is where your life needs and your self-worth needs are not met. And those people become homeless, they become addicts. Gabor Mate talks about serving that population up in Canada. He wrote a book about it called let me see, what was that called? In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts is that book. And those people felt no worth. And there was no room for them to be true to themselves. So the people that they would have attached to had requirements on them that if you are who you really are, we don't want you. So pretend to be somebody we want you to be. And so they oftentimes left their family of origin and then were on the streets. and got into drugs to numb the pain of rejection. So they have no outside resources, right? They're just going for the next hit to stay numb. Then when you move over to quadrant two, you also have people struggling, like what you just named. There are people that want to make a living, they want to thrive. Maybe in quadrant two, we talk about families where the parents work 2 or 3 jobs each just to put a roof over their head and put food in their children's bellies. One of the stories is someone I know, not a client of mine, but someone I know in my personal life. His family struggled so much, they had popcorn for dinner and they were glad for it. And so, yes, there are situations where people are struggling and it's not fair. And that's just true. And so I always say, tell the truth about what's not fair. We need to say that it's not good for people to be in that situation. And any adult that's working 3 jobs just to eat, like the system is failing them. But in quadrant two, the big difference is those parents treat their children and treat each other as worthy. Their life needs are barely getting met, but self-worth needs are still met because they get it. They understand the value of honoring self-worth as a birthright, not as an achievement, not as something you work for, right? Just they exist and so they have worth, which is why they go get the 3rd job.
You mentioned throughout our interview self-worth being a birthright, right? You're worthy of being born. And I love that because I 100% agree. I think everyone that has been born, maybe everyone who has been born, sorry, they're all worthy of feeling worthiness. For those who, you mentioned addiction, you mentioned those who are homelessness, and I mentioned those who are struggling, maybe they're teetering. They know they're born with it, but they don't necessarily have it, or that's their perception. Can self-worth be taken away from us by someone else?
No, but it can be denied and it can be consistently denied in a child young enough that what is normalized for them is that their self-worth is denied. And so that they then learn that affirming their own worth gets them punished.
So there's a
Yeah,
consequence to feeling worthy, a
there
negative
can be.
consequence.
Yeah, yeah. In some family systems, that can be true. We see that historically as well. There are communities where a person can be completely devalued, and the other people in the community are too afraid to step up and say, we don't agree with the devaluation of this person because they don't want to be next. So when a whole community is complicit in the devaluing of one person, that becomes quite a weapon, doesn't it?
Yes, because that person would have to make a choice. Either they would have to change themselves, whatever that may look like, or they would have to leave that community.
Yes, and we see evidence of that. We see people desperate to leave hostile communities in this country. We have a history of that. And there are helpers, but everybody's in jeopardy. And I look at the history and I go, why? Why do we not see the people and the helpers as honoring something they have? Yeah, they're leaving a system that's mistreating them, but not because they actually hate those people, which in that case, I get why you would hate certain scenarios where you're being completely dehumanized in the service of other people, right? It's disgusting. And when they try to leave, everybody gets in trouble for trying to uh, get people to safety. And it's all about worth. The people leaving and the people helping the people leave are honoring worth. And how did we get so upside down in the human story that that's been too prevalent?
Could it be that what you find worthy is different than what I find worthy, so therefore I'm not gonna treat you as someone that's worthy?
That's a great point of view. Um, so I would name it this way. It could be that the conditions someone puts on my worth makes me unworthy to them, right? So what I'm saying here today, what I just said, there are people that will not like what I just said. And they will not only disagree with it, they will try to disavow it. And that their condition is, Dawna, be silent. Dawna, don't say such things. Dawna, look at with a prettier lens, put a prettier lens on that, make that more palatable, right? And then I'm like, well, yeah, but when people are inhumane, we can't make that pretty. We can't make that softer. We need to tell the truth about how awful it is so we don't repeat it. That's what the existentialists were doing after World War II. They looked at those horrendous events where people were ripped out of their homes and then routinely discarded, um, and treated like they're this wasn't a human being anymore. They were emaciated to the point that they didn't even look like human beings anymore. They looked like skeletons, right? And the existentialists, and I think of Viktor Frankl, he was an existential psychologist. They stepped up and said, what do we need to do to protect humanity from ever repeating this type of event again? And they got into purpose and meaning and, how individual meaning can be. So you were just saying you could see something differently than I could. That's true. So when I talk about affirming self-worth, I'm not saying be like me. You would not be a happy camper if you had to be like me, right? We probably like different music. Maybe not all the same, but like I don't want you to listen to the music I listen to. I want you to listen to and love the music you already enjoy, right? So within worth conscious theory, it's your worth is intact and it opens the world up for you to live true to yourself in it and remain worthy. So I don't put my conditions on you and you shouldn't let me.
Yes, because we've both realized that we both find value in music, regardless of the type of music, right? So we
Mhm.
have a high level view. We both like music, so it's worthy to
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
Now, if we go further down and we get granular with it, right? You may like a certain type of music. I may like a certain type of music. The problem, I guess, with human nature is to maybe want to say that, well, my music is better than yours. Therefore, bringing
right.
down your value, trying to elevate mine, even though we both love music.
Yeah,
So I wonder then, could some of the issues that some people face when it comes to value and who value external things, it could be that American dream, right? White picket fence, dog named Sparky, 2.5 children get married. I have those four things. I am worthy of being valuable to others because that's the dream of the average American.
okay.
If you have three out of those four things, you're less valuable than me. If you have two out of the four, you're less valuable, and so on. Even though this is something that was told to us, that was shared to us, it doesn't even define us.
Yeah,
But to our point, is because of our conditions. I was told this was supposed to be valuable. So if that's
yeah.
the benchmark that is supposed to be value, how can we then maybe break those conditions and find true value in the uniqueness of people?
Mm. So first of all, we name them. And so that happens in therapy all the time. So we start naming the conditions, and they're usually conditions for acceptance that that you feel unworthy when you accept those conditions, but at least you get some kind of attachment from it. So we want attachment. In fact, we're made to connect with each other. And in certain systems, when you have to be a certain way or pretend to be something to be acceptable, children will do that. We see it over and over and over again because they want the attachment. It's a survival instinct. But as they get older, let's say they become a teenager, and I firmly believe a lot of rebellion is, I don't want to pretend anymore. I'm seeing from a different point of view and I'm rebelling against conditions, right? And then they find out how big the punishment is for rebelling against conditions that the system upholds. And that's the pivotal point, is when you find out what somebody's willing to do to make you sound like them, look like them, live like them, or just not be you, because the way you're different is something they can't grasp. They can't allow for it because they can't understand it. So don't be you is the message. So when that happens, what you said earlier, people leave the system.
What role then do you think authenticity has in our self-worth?
Well, what the way we talk about it is your worth and your lived truth belong together. They need to be congruent. You get to be true to yourself and remain worthy. That means condition free, right? And that the people that you make sense to, it's because of the truth that you share, and then the beauty of being worthy in that shared truth. So we have our individual truth, and then we have shared truth in some of our connections. But like, there are places in the area I live right now, I could walk in there and people wouldn't want me there. Like, one of the number one things I've known this for my adult life is because I'm a woman, right? There are places that, because I'm a woman, and if I did show up, I need to be agreeable. That's the condition on me, right? That those traditional things still exist in the world, right? And so I don't choose to go to those places. I choose to cultivate community with people that can let me be who I am and still see my worth. That doesn't mean they agree with everything I agree with, but that's one of the um, healthy things about mutual respect. So where we have respect for worth as a birthright, and then that evolves into self-respect, we can then cultivate mutual respect with people that have that same ability.
That's tough because we're social creatures. So if we're going out in the world and these things are impacting our worth because they're placing conditions, I go over here, I have a sense of worthiness because of my gender, but only if I behave this way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or if I'm going to live in this area, I have to make sure that I'm earning this amount of income.
yeah, yeah.
So there are people who are trying to find their worthiness, but they're making compromises. These compromises should be short term in nature, or is it problematic if they're both short term and long term?
So I think this is where we start seeing how multifaceted this is, because compromises and conditions are different things. Like, I'm in a long-term relationship. I'm a married person. And there are things that we don't go out to eat. He doesn't like Mexican food. I do, right? But I'm not going to say, because I crave Mexican food, you have to go with me to eat something that, and this is a thing that's hard on my partner's stomach, right? So it's not just a preference, there's an outcome that's undesirable. And so I'm not going to force my preference, and it is just a preference for me, onto him when I know that it's a reality for him that's undesirable. But that doesn't mean I'm never going to go get Mexican food. I mean, one of my favorite places is like 2 miles from my house. It's awesome, right? So I'm still going to go enjoy that, like with one of my kids or even on my own. I'll go pick that up and bring it home. But I'm not going to force that choice on somebody that not only has let me know that's not something they want, but it actually causes a little bit of harm. So I think some compromises are loving, but conditions on worth are not loving. Conditions on worth, I'm going to say, are never loving.
And I will agree. And I'll probably say that there's a difference between coming from a place of care and compassion and versus control,
Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
condition would be that I'm going to control the behavior. So yes, you have value as a woman, but only if you do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right? Versus a compromise would be that, hey, instead of going out at 7 p.m., we go out at 8. I want to go at 7. Well, can we compromise this time because of the reasons? Listen, you still have a choice and you're coming both from a place of care, but I think the conditions will, in general, always come from control. I want to make sure you behave in the way that I want to behave. It's like when I remember when I moved into when someone, sorry, there's this single mother. I think she was a single mother. She moved into the neighborhood I live in, and this neighborhood is no one has children. Everyone spent the majority of their time getting this house, this neighborhood, so on. They judged her, right? Because she had kids, she had toys, they had cars, and within a year she was gone because she didn't feel valuable as a mother. And it was sad. And that leads me to my final question for you, Donna, is I want to give you 3 wishes for this question. What are 3 things you wish people knew about the impact of their relationships, positively or negatively, on their self-worth and why?
Okay, say it one more time. What?
What are 3 things you wish people knew about the impact that relationships can have on their self-worth, whether positive or negative, and why?
Okay, how the impact relationships have on self-worth, positive or negative. Okay. It's where we learn our self-worth. We aren't born knowing it. So in the first year of life, when our life needs are met, this is from Maslow, he talked about life needs. When our life needs are met, we're given a bottle when we're hungry. But the way that bottle is given to us tells us if we are worth that feeding, right? So in the very first year of life, the relating that happens tells us over and over again about our worth or that it's absent. Now, in Erickson's psychosocial model, he says that first year we learn trust versus mistrust. And what we learn to trust is that our needs get met. But what in our book we talk about self-worth needs because we haven't seen it stated this way. We've seen emotional needs, we've seen values, we've seen beliefs, we've seen other language that's given to this reality, but we wanted to talk about having self-worth needs that start the first year of life, that our relationship with our caregivers and with the people around us tells us our life needs are met and our self-worth needs are met, or just our life needs are met and our self-worth needs can be partially met or can be met inconsistently, or the conditions can kick in at some point where our self-worth is conditional. So we're fed. So relationally, making sure we have our basic needs matters, but how we're fed, how we're clothed, how it's talked about tells us about our worth in that system. And that's relational. It all starts with